Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. They say grief has a sound. But the moment my life began to collapse, everything went silent. My name is Francisco Alvarez. I'm 38, a small-town accountant from Davenport, Iowa. Not exactly the kind of guy people write stories about. I lived a modest, quiet life, commuting to work, taking care of my wife, Isabel, and our 8-year-old son, Nico. We weren't rich, but I thought we had enough. Enough love. Enough trust. Enough to weather storms. Turns out, I was wrong. The first crack in the glass came disguised as a sigh. A sharp exhale from Isabel when I sent $300 to my mother to fix her kitchen plumbing. My mother, Teresa, was 74 and battling congestive heart failure. She lived alone in a creaky house 2 hours away, and ever since my father passed, I'd made it my mission to be there for her. That didn't sit well with Isabel. "You sent her money again," she snapped one night, tossing her phone on the kitchen table like it had insulted her. "She needed to fix a leak," I replied, trying to keep my tone calm. "The floor was starting to rot." "We need money too, Francisco. Nico's outgrown all his clothes, the car needs a new battery, and you're funding your mother's life like we're millionaires." "I'm not funding anything. I'm helping her survive." But the conversation didn't end there. It never did. The arguments became routine. Every dollar I sent to my mother became a personal insult to Isabel. She began to accuse me of prioritizing my mother over our marriage. Said I was selfish. That I was stuck being a son instead of learning to be a husband. I didn't fight back much. Maybe I should have. But I was tired. I worked overtime just to make ends meet. And in those few precious hours I had at home, I didn't want to spend them screaming. But it didn't matter. Isabel started drifting. Spending more time out of the house, at the salon, then girl nights, then just silence. No explanation. No warmth. And when I brought it up, "I need space," she said. "You've become cold. Distant." I wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so far from the truth. I was trying to hold everything together, a sick mother, a son who needed both parents, and a wife who clearly wanted to be anywhere but near me. Then came the storm. One freezing January morning, I got a call from my mother's doctor. Her condition had worsened overnight. Heart failure. ICU. Urgent care. "Come now," he said. "It may be time." My hands shook as I packed a bag. I texted Isabel, told her I'd be driving down. She responded with a single word, "Fine." When I arrived at the hospital, I found my mother hooked up to machines, her skin pale, her voice almost too soft to hear. But when I held her hand, she smiled. "You came," she whispered. "I knew you would." I stayed by her side for 2 days straight. Slept on the hospital couch. Read Nico his bedtime stories over FaceTime. Told him Grandma was a little sick, but we were helping her get better. When I finally returned home, something felt off. The lights were off. The house too quiet. Isabel was gone. Not just for a walk or a night at her sister's. Gone. No car. No note. No noise. I opened our banking app, and nearly dropped the phone. She drained our joint account. Every penny. Years of savings. Emergency funds. All gone. She even took Nico's school tuition savings. I sat there in the dark, my heart thudding against my ribs like a war drum. I wanted to scream, to break something. But all I could do was whisper the one word that had suddenly become a crater in my chest. Why? The next morning, a legal courier arrived. Divorce papers. Filed while I was holding my mother's hand in the ICU. She cited emotional abandonment and requested full custody of Nico. The betrayal was complete. I stared at her signature on the last page, frozen in ink, and realized something terrifying. She didn't just leave me. She timed it. She waited until I was at my weakest, caring for the woman who gave me life, then struck like a wolf in sheep's clothing. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what Isabel didn't know, was that karma had been quietly building in the shadows. And when it came, it would roar like thunder. When someone betrays you, the pain doesn't just settle in your heart. It spreads, into your bones, your breath, your sleep. Like poison. The morning after Isabel left, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the man on the other side. My eyes were sunken. My jaw tight. The faint beginnings of gray clung to my hair like dust. I was exhausted. Nico shuffled into the kitchen as I poured water into a pot of instant noodles. He rubbed his eyes and asked, "Where's Mom?" I froze. She had been gone for 3 days now. I hadn't told him yet. I didn't know how. "She's taking a break," I said, forcing a smile that hurt. She needed time to think. He nodded slowly, then asked the question that cut deepest. "Did she leave because of Grandma?" I choked on air. "No, buddy. This isn't your fault. Or Grandma's. Sometimes, adults make bad choices." But deep down, I was screaming. Because I had been trying. Working 2 jobs. Stretching every cent, staying up late with spreadsheets in one hand and hospital bills in the other. And now. I was standing in a kitchen with $142 in my personal account, a son who still believed in both his parents, and a mother fighting for her life. I called the hospital. The transfer to St. Vincent's in Des Moines, where the cardiology team could run her stent procedure, would cost $14,000 upfront. Not covered by her insurance. I hung up and buried my face in my hands. That night, I sat in the living room staring at the divorce papers. Isabel's lawyer had included an aggressive clause. She wanted not only the house, but alimony, and full custody of Nico. She accused me of emotional abandonment. Of choosing my mother over my family. My blood boiled reading those words. You left. You took the money. You timed it while I was grieving. But I didn't have time to rage. I had to survive. That week, I sold the car. It wasn't much, $7,200. I used half for the initial hospital deposit, and the rest for groceries, bills, and an Uber to take Nico to school each morning before I took the bus to work. At night, I logged into a remote tax prep job I found online. It paid terribly, but I didn't care. Every dollar mattered now. My mother's surgery was scheduled for the following week. I held her hand before she was wheeled into the OR. Her skin was paper thin. Her smile still warm. "You look tired," she whispered. I almost laughed. "I've been better," I said. "But you just focus on healing. That's all I care about." She squeezed my hand. "Don't let your heart harden, Francisco. Forgive her. Not for her, but for you." I nodded, but I didn't believe it. Forgiveness? No. Not yet. The next few days blurred. I'd drop Nico at school, work my 9 to 5, visit the hospital after, help Mom with her walking exercises, then head home, feed Nico, read him a book, tuck him in, and start working online until 2 a.m. Then repeat. I started keeping painkillers by the bed, not because I was sick, but because everything hurt. My back. My neck. My spirit. Still, I didn't cry. Not until Nico found an old photo one night. It was a picture of us at the beach, me, Isabel, and Nico, back when he was 5. We looked happy. Real. He held it up and asked, "Do you think she'll come back?" I looked at his face, so innocent, so unbroken, and something in me shattered. I pulled him into my arms and sobbed. He didn't say anything, just held me tighter. And that's when I realized something terrifying. This was it. There was no cavalry coming. No miracle. No rescue. I was alone. A dying mother. A broken marriage. A child who still looked at me like I had all the answers. And less than $300 left in the bank. But the universe is strange. Because when you're buried that deep, sometimes that's exactly when the truth starts to surface. Some truths don't shout, they whisper. And if you're not listening, you'll miss them. It happened 2 days after my mother's procedure. She was stable but weak, recovering slowly at St. Vincent's. I was sitting by her bed, balancing Nico's dinosaur sketchbook on one knee and my laptop on the other, trying to respond to work emails. That's when she whispered, "Francisco, open the bottom drawer of my dresser back home. The brown envelope is for you." I looked up. "What is it, Mom?" Her eyes, still a little dim from medication, twinkled. "You'll know when you see it." At the time, I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just old documents or letters. My mom was sentimental like that. I told her I'd check it out after the weekend. But that Saturday, while Nico was playing in the backyard of her Decatur home, I remembered. I walked slowly into her bedroom. Everything in it felt frozen in time. Lace curtains, soft yellow walls, a faded picture of my father by the bed. I opened the bottom drawer of the old oak dresser. Beneath some scarves and a crocheted shawl, I found it, a thick brown envelope with my name written in her delicate handwriting. Inside were 2 things. 1, a letter. 2, a series of financial documents and stock certificates dating back over 20 years. I sat on the bed and unfolded the letter. It was written in blue ink, each word trembling but full of purpose. Francisco. If you're reading this, it means I'm either very sick, or I've passed. I want you to know that everything I did was for you. And your father, well, he left something behind. He may not have been rich, but he believed in preparing for the future. 20 years ago, he invested in a small tech startup. We never touched the stocks. I kept them, hoping someday, they'd mean something to you and Nico. Use them when you're ready. But don't tell Isabel. Love. Mom. I stared at the certificates. One of them bore the name Trivatech Inc. That name, it rang a bell. I opened my laptop, my hands shaking, and searched it. Trivatech was now a global leader in cybersecurity software. They'd recently been acquired by a multinational conglomerate for billions. I typed in the stock symbol and ran the numbers. And then I stopped breathing. Those shares were worth over $5.2 million. I nearly dropped the laptop. I blinked again, thinking maybe I'd misread it. But no, it was real. My father's investment. My mother's secret. A silent legacy they'd both protected from a world that had offered them nothing but struggle. I let out a sound, half laugh, half sob. But in that joy, a new storm began to gather. Because the first thought that came to mind was not about the house, the bills, or even Nico's future. It was Isabel. If she had known about this money, she never would have left. No. That's not right. She would have waited longer. Plotted more carefully. Maybe tried to take it. My heart pounded with a sickening realization. She didn't just betray me out of resentment. She left because she thought I had nothing. Because she thought she could destroy me without consequence. I stared out the window, the maple trees rustling in the wind like whispers from the past. A plan started to form. But before revenge, I needed protection. I called a lawyer the next morning. A calm, analytical man named Elijah Walker. I told him everything, the stocks, the house, the divorce papers. He didn't flinch. We'll start by creating a trust in your name and your son's. We'll separate these assets from your marital estate. Quietly. Legally. Can she come after any of it? I asked. He smiled faintly. Only if she knows it exists. And she won't, not if you follow my lead. By the following week, Elijah had set up the Francisco and Nico Trust Fund. Every asset my parents had left me, life insurance, property, and now stocks, were tucked inside a legal vault Isabel could never touch. But that wasn't the only discovery I made. While going through bank statements for court, I noticed several strange charges from months before Isabel left. Boutique hotels. Luxury dinners. Jewelry stores in cities she never told me she visited. I confronted her sister, Rachel, under the guise of figuring out Isabel's new address for Nico's school paperwork. What Rachel told me made my blood turn to ice. Isabel had been having an affair with a man named Chase, her boss at the salon. Worse. She'd bragged to Rachel that she'd finally be free soon, and that Francisco is too boring to notice. She even said she was waiting for him to be distracted again with his old mother before making her move. Distracted. Again. Like this was all part of her master plan. My hands trembled as I hung up the phone. That was it. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a blueprint. She'd used my mother's illness as a diversion to stage her escape. She stole our money. Lied about her love. Manipulated our son. And now she thought she'd walk away clean. But she had no idea what I now held in my hands. A second chance. A weapon wrapped in inheritance and truth. And it was time to sharpen the blade. They say the best revenge is living well. But I disagree. The best revenge is letting someone build their castle on lies, then pulling out the foundation brick by brick while they smile from the balcony. I wasn't just going to move on. I was going to make sure Isabel understood the price of betrayal. The real price. The day after I discovered the stocks and confirmed the affair, I sat across from Elijah Walker, my lawyer and newfound architect of poetic justice, and laid it all out. I don't want her to see a dime of what my parents left, I said. But I don't just want to protect it, I want to make a point. Elijah nodded. Then we don't just defend. We counter. Step 1, the trust. We locked everything away, every stock, insurance policy, even the deed to my mother's home in Decatur, under the Francisco and Nico Irrevocable Trust. Legally airtight. Isabel couldn't touch it because, technically, I didn't own it anymore. The trust did. And she couldn't know. Not yet. We transferred the house in Springfield to the trust too, and Elijah advised I offer Isabel a buyout during the divorce mediation, a generous one, designed to lull her into false security. Step 2, the custody trap. Isabel hadn't even contacted Nico in 3 weeks. No calls. No texts. Nothing. She was probably too busy with her new life. I began documenting everything, dates, screenshots, statements from Nico's teacher. I even installed a call log tracker that proved she wasn't trying. When her lawyer demanded full custody, I pushed back, quietly, reasonably. But behind the scenes, I was preparing a full character dossier. I gathered evidence of her affair, proof of the joint account withdrawals, and financial records that showed she left her own son with nothing. Elijah smiled when he saw the stack. She wanted to play hardball, he said. Let's bring the whole stadium. Step 3, the bait. We agreed to let Isabel think I was broken. That I was scraping together money to buy out her share of the house. I had Elijah send an offer, $500,000 in cash to keep the house and settle the split amicably. She accepted within 24 hours. Didn't even ask where I got the money. And I knew why. Because she thought it came from selling off the house in Decatur or begging my employer for an advance. She thought she'd won. I had one final move to make before court. And it would come from Nico. One evening, I picked him up from school and asked, "Buddy, would you be okay talking to someone about your feelings?" He looked up, his eyes serious. "Like a doctor?" "Kind of. Like someone who helps kids when stuff gets hard. About mom, about grandma, about everything." He nodded. "Okay." I got him into weekly sessions with a child therapist, someone certified to testify in family court. And Nico, God bless his brave little heart, opened up like a book. He talked about Isabel yelling. About her coldness. How she didn't say goodbye. How she didn't call. How he missed her, but didn't feel safe with her anymore. By the end of 4 sessions, the therapist wrote a report that read like a death sentence for Isabel's custody claim. And I made sure the judge would read every word. The night before the court hearing, I sat in the living room after putting Nico to bed. I stared at the divorce papers one last time. The same papers that once made my hands shake with grief now felt powerless. Like a relic from a life I no longer lived. I whispered to myself, "This ends tomorrow." But I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was focused. And calm. Because Isabel thought she had buried me. She didn't realize I was planting roots. And when I rose again, would tower over her with a calm smile, and a legal sledgehammer in hand. The courthouse smelled like old wood and cold justice. I arrived early with Nico's teacher, who had kindly agreed to sit with him during the hearing. I wore my best suit, nothing flashy, just respectful. Professional. The kind of outfit a man wears when he's not just defending his future, but honoring the past. Isabel arrived 15 minutes late. She swept in wearing a designer coat, beige with gold buttons, heels clicking like a metronome of entitlement. Her face was calm. Cold. Confident. She didn't look at me. Not once. Her lawyer, a man named Royce something, whispered to her and gave me a smug once-over. They thought they were here to pick the bones of a man broken by grief. They had no idea I'd come to bury them. The judge, a stern, gray-haired woman named Honorable Jean Belrose, opened the proceedings. We began with asset division. Isabel's lawyer claimed she was entitled to half of everything, the house, remaining savings, and even a portion of my future earnings. Mrs. Alvarez, he said, sacrificed her prime years supporting the marriage and deserves to maintain her lifestyle. I almost laughed. But I stayed still. Controlled. Elijah stood, unshaken. Your Honor, my client has offered Mrs. Alvarez a lump sum of $500,000 in cash and full ownership of her personal vehicle. This is more than generous, considering her voluntary abandonment of the home and shared responsibilities. The judge raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Alvarez, do you accept this settlement? Isabel nodded almost too quickly. Yes, Your Honor. Still no question of where the money came from. Still smug. Next came the custody hearing. This is where things shifted. Elijah presented documented proof that Isabel had not contacted Nico in over a month. He submitted financial records showing she emptied our joint account. He revealed hotel and restaurant charges made during the week my mother was in the ICU. Then came the therapist's report. The judge read it silently. Her eyes narrowed. Then she turned to Isabel. Mrs. Alvarez, do you have any response to these allegations of abandonment and emotional neglect? Isabel shifted in her seat, her smile finally cracking. That's exaggerated. I was under stress. And I didn't abandon my son. I just needed space. The judge didn't blink. Did you reach out to him at all? A phone call? A message? Even a birthday card? Silence. Isabel looked at her lawyer, but he had nothing. Then I spoke. Calmly. Your Honor, I've done everything in my power to keep our son stable. I've worked 3 jobs, provided for him, taken him to therapy. I don't want to punish Isabel. I just want what's best for Nico. And right now, that's staying with me. The judge took a long pause. I agree. She hammered the gavel once. Full physical and legal custody is granted to Mr. Alvarez. The settlement is approved. This hearing is adjourned. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like weeks. But it wasn't over. Because as we were walking out, Isabel suddenly rushed up to me, her heels wobbling, her eyes frantic. Francisco, wait. Can we talk? I turned, meeting her gaze head-on. She was crying. Real tears now. Maybe for Nico. Maybe for the $500,000 she had so eagerly pocketed, not realizing it was a mere crumb compared to what she had thrown away. You didn't tell me about the money, she whispered. The stocks. The inheritance. Why didn't you tell me? I kept my voice steady. Because it was never yours to know. My father left that for me. My mother preserved it. And you tried to burn everything while I was at my weakest. Her lip quivered. I made a mistake. No, Isabel. You made a choice. She reached for Nico, who stood just behind me. Nico, baby, Mommy made a mistake, but I still love you. Don't you want us to be a family again? Nico, bless his heart, didn't move. He looked up at me. Then back at her. No, he said softly. You left us. I don't trust you. Her face collapsed. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I simply placed a hand on Nico's shoulder and said, come on, buddy. Let's go home. And we walked away. I thought it was over. I thought after the hearing, after winning full custody of Nico and securing everything my parents left behind, Isabel would finally disappear. But greed has a way of crawling back. 2 weeks after the ruling, I received a summons. She was suing me. Claiming undisclosed marital assets and fraudulent concealment of shared wealth. She must have finally heard whispers about the money, maybe from Rachel, maybe she hired a private investigator. However it happened, she now knew. She knew about the $500,000 life insurance. The stocks. The trust. Everything. She wanted half. She thought she found her loophole. But the thing about a loophole. If you didn't sew the threads right, you hang yourself with it. We met again in court, same building, different energy. This time, Isabel wasn't wearing gold buttons and smug confidence. She wore desperation, dressed in a tailored lie. Her new lawyer stood up and claimed I'd intentionally misled the court by hiding my mother's financial legacy. That I'd set up the trust after the divorce filing as a way to shield shared assets. And she had a letter, the handwritten one my mother left me, claiming it was proof of intent to share the funds with the family. Elijah stood slowly, looking almost bored. Your Honor, he began, we would like to submit into evidence the notarized date of the trust, which was established before Mrs. Alvarez filed for divorce. Additionally, we have bank records showing that all assets were inherited by Mr. Alvarez through a direct transfer outlined in his late mother's will. He paused. And may I remind the court that inheritances, unless commingled into marital accounts, are not considered shared property under Iowa law. Boom. Silence. The judge, same one from before, reviewed the documents. Her eyes flicked to Isabel. Mrs. Alvarez, did you contribute any funds to this inheritance? No. Were you ever named as a beneficiary? No. Did Mr. Alvarez ever deposit any of this money into your joint accounts? No. Her voice was shrinking. Shriveling. The judge sat back, folded her hands, and delivered the final blow. This suit is without merit. Mr. Alvarez has acted within the full bounds of the law. All claims are dismissed. Another gavel strike. And just like that, Isabel's last shot shattered in midair. But what came next? Even I wasn't ready for it. As we stepped into the hallway, Isabel followed me again. No heels this time. Just flat shoes and panic. You can't do this, she hissed. You're going to let me suffer while you sit on millions? I looked her dead in the eye. You didn't suffer, Isabel. You escaped. And now you're angry that I survived without you. She backed off, breathing hard. Then Nico appeared from around the corner, clutching a book and smiling. Dad! We're still getting ice cream, right? Yeah, buddy. Extra scoops today. Isabel tried one last time. Nico, don't you want your mom to be part of your life again? He looked at her, then at me. Then he walked over and grabbed my hand. Not if she only wants money. That was it. No yelling. No swearing. Just truth. Pure and undeniable. I walked out of that courthouse with my son and our future. And behind me, Isabel collapsed onto a bench, tears streaking her foundation. But even then, I didn't smile. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. When a storm ends, you don't always hear thunder fade away. Sometimes, all you hear, is silence. That silence came the morning after court, sunlight pouring through the kitchen window, Nico laughing as he poured too much syrup on his pancakes, and me, sitting at the table, not because I had to work overtime or answer another legal threat, but because I could. Because we were free. Isabel never contacted us again. She disappeared into whatever life she had left with Chase, or without him. I heard rumors through Rachel that the salon job didn't last, and neither did the boyfriend. Apparently, Chase bailed the second her money ran dry. Classic. I felt nothing. No glee. No pain. Just relief. My mother once said, the people who betray you are like shadows, loud when the sun is behind them, but powerless when the light moves on. That light now belonged to me and Nico. I used part of the inheritance to finish paying off the Springfield house. No more mortgage, no more calls from the bank. I even had the deed framed and hung by the front door. Every time I passed it, I reminded myself, this was built with love, not revenge. I set aside a college fund for Nico. Gave generously to the cardiac wing of the hospital that treated my mother. And with Elijah's help, I opened a small foundation under my mother's name, the Teresa Hope Fund, to support single parents caring for elderly family. I wasn't rich because of the money. I was rich because I'd kept my soul. Nico started sleeping better. Laughing more. Drawing again. He'd sit on the back porch with his dinosaur books and ask questions about Grandma. About my father. About the kind of man I was trying to be. One night, he said something that broke me open. Dad, when I grow up, I want to be like you. Someone who doesn't give up. Even when it's really, really hard. I turned away so he wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. He didn't need to see me cry. He needed to see me heal. But there was one last thing I had to do. I returned to Decatur with Nico. We stood at my mother's grave, just the two of us, under a blue sky dotted with clouds that moved like slow ships. I placed flowers down and whispered, "You saved us, Mom. You and Dad. You gave us everything when we had nothing. I hope you're proud." Nico knelt beside me and added something of his own. A drawing of a dinosaur, with wings. "She's flying now," he said. And I believed him. Later that week, I wrote Isabel a letter. Not out of bitterness. Not as a warning. Just closure. Isabel. You taught me something I never expected. That love without loyalty is just performance. I don't hate you. But I pity you. Because you had everything, love, family, a good man, and you threw it away chasing ghosts. I hope you find peace someday. But you'll never find your way back here. Not because I won't open the door. But because I already built a new one. One that leads forward. Francisco. I never sent it. I just folded it, burned it, and let the smoke drift upward like the last remnants of a nightmare. Today, life isn't perfect. But it's ours. Nico is thriving. I make pancakes without stress. I still work as an accountant, but I do it on my terms. No more 2 a.m. shifts. No more eating anxiety for breakfast. And every now and then, when I pass the mirror, I see a man I recognize again. A man who lost everything, and chose not to break. A man who was betrayed, and chose not to become bitter. A man who was quiet, but strong enough to shake the ground when it mattered. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.